Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of YHB TV. That is your Handmade Business Television. I am Isaac Watson. This is Sharon Fain. And we have with us today Arianne Foulks from Aeolidia. We are very excited to have her joining us for a wonderful talk about evolving in your business. First of all, I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So if you're having any tech issues with the audio, give me a shout out. And please make sure you introduce yourselves in the chat to each other so you can meet each other and get to know the other businesses that are joining us. And I'm breaking up.
I don't think you're breaking up. Yeah, I think it might be your connection, Karen.
Okay, Karen, you might try refreshing your browser, see if that helps. Otherwise, it might be your internet.
Yeah, close all the tabs.
Close all the
Hi,
tabs.
Trisha.
Hi, Trisha. Hi, Holly. Karen and Keisha are in here as well. And we've got tons of other people. So as you all trickle in, if you're brand new to Crowdcast, there's a chat area on the right. And you can click the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the video to submit your questions for us to cover at the end of the session, especially if you have questions for Arianne. We are excited to let you know, if you're new to this, that we also have a private Facebook group that you can join, where we talk about all kinds of stuff, including our monthly themes. And like this morning, we were chatting about creative ways that you track numbers in your business and all kinds of fun stuff. So we've got great stuff there as well. Amanda Siska's in here as well. Hello. And Steph from Australia. You might be our farthest flung watcher today, which is fantastic. I don't even know what day or time it is there, but that doesn't matter as long as you're here with us.
Anything that ever crosses like an international date line is especially like,
yeah.
Oh, I have a friend that's in New Zealand, and she'll post things on Facebook, and Facebook will mark it as it happened like in the future. And it's like, whoa.
Time travel.
You're a time traveler.
Awesome. Well, we wanted to call out two quick things for you before we get into our discussion with Arianne. First of all, if you are new joining us for the first time, I know we have some newbies that came over from the post that Arianne posted in her own Facebook group. But we have a free quiz that you can take to find out what your maker business type is. But not just the maker business type that you have right now, the maker business type that you have in the future. And we've been doing a little bit of tweaking on that, and we've got a slightly new version coming soon. But head over to academyofhandmade.com/quiz. I'll put the link in the chat if I can type and talk at the same time, to take that and figure out where your business stands right now. We also wanted to call out the fact that there is only one more day left to take advantage of our Jumpstart Your Handmade Business program. At its current price. The price is going up at the end of the day tomorrow. Is that correct, Sharon?
Mm-hmm.
So the great news is if you buy it between now and then, you still get to take advantage of all the revamps that we're doing and relaunching at the end of the month. And there's lots of really good stuff coming there, including a really awesome spreadsheet that we've been working on. It's amazing. I love it.
Sheets.
multiple. Excellent.
So many tabs.
Am I missing anything, Sharon?
No, that is it. The Jumpstart, you can, if you're interested, there's a button right below where we're talking called Jumpstart Your Handmade Business, and you can see it, check that out there.
Excellent. Well, this month, the month of January for YHB TV in our private community and in our newsletter and podcast, we are, well, not the podcast's on a break right now. But in all those other channels, we are talking about the theme of evolution and revolution and how that applies to your business. And today, in particular, we are talking about evolving in your business with Arianne. So I'm pretty sure most of you know who Arianne is, but just in case you don't, here's a little background on her. Arianne Foulks is captain and founder of Aeolidia, a web and graphic design studio that has been working with creative, design-oriented shops since 2004. Aeolidia serves those at early stages on their path with an informative blog and supportive community and a pretty awesome newsletter, and meets established businesses at that tipping point where strategic design can be transformative. It's funny, course, we're talking about transformation today and cause exponential growth. So thank you for being with us, Arianne. It's wonderful to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here. Hi, Karen. People are complimenting me in the comments. Thank you, guys.
That's a problem to have. Awesome. Well, Sharon, do you want to kick it off with some questions for Arianne?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I guess it'd be interesting to talk about just first about maybe a little bit of background on what you do in your own business, like kind of maybe a little bit about the process, about how you've been working with makers to transform them, actually in creative businesses in general, I think, because you work with more than just makers, and let us maybe kind of like know like what is that process of transformation usually looking like?
Sure. I don't know if there's a usually, but we can talk about it. So first of all, I'm definitely an expert at evolving and transforming just personally, because I started my business about 13 years ago, I think. And it was just little old me sitting on my couch with my laptop, working like 18 hours a day. There was no work-life balance back then. And now I do not do any web design or any web development. In fact, if I had to figure out how to do those things again, it's been so long, I don't think I'd have any hope. So I'm just the boss now. I come up with ideas. I do a lot of marketing. I kind of turned into the copywriter and the marketer for Aeolidia. And then my favorite thing to do is I just spend a lot of time making things a little bit better every day. So whenever somebody hits a snag in our process or whatever, we don't just let it go. I'm like, okay, how can we make sure that never happens again? So that's what my job turned into. And I have to say, I totally resisted it during the point when it was really starting to change. Like when I was starting to do less design work and less development, I was like, well, I could hire some people, but if I hire too many people, I'm gonna have to spend all my time managing their projects, and then won't have any time to do any of my own. And I really hated that idea. And I was like, no, I would hate that. That would be awful. So I tried not to do that for a long time. And then I had a baby, and then I had another baby. And I didn't have time to do that stuff anyway. And I did hire a bunch of people. And then it turned out once I got into my role, I enjoy what I do now so much more than, I don't know if I enjoy it more than I did at the time, but if I had to go back and do that kind of work now, I would be like, that's not what I want to do anymore. So, sometimes you feel like you don't want to make a change in your business, but it turns out to be the very best thing. And, it pushes you to develop new skills and learn new stuff. And it's been really good for me. So for our clients, you also asked about our clients. So we do call our work transformative. We used to do a little bit of everything. So people could just come to us and say, hey, I have a logo, but I'd really like you to design me a postcard. And we would just do little jobs like that. Or they would have a website and need some changes to it, or they would want a website, but their photography was terrible. And we'd go ahead and make them a website, but it wouldn't look very good because they didn't have the content ready. And I got really frustrated doing work that like it felt we were cutting corners, or we weren't doing everything that needed to get done, or it felt like I wasn't setting people up for success because I only did the one part of it, but they needed 3 other parts of it. So over the years, I've just added people to help on the team. So we have a photographer now and a copywriter and a marketing consultant, because if people like get in with us and they want to do a project, I want everybody to be all in, and I want to know we're doing something that's going to have a good return on investment and not be a waste of anybody's time or money. And to do that, I just feel like you have to do it. You just kind of have to start over. So the people that we work with tend to be at a place where they want to, like, they feel like they want to reach the next level, or they're transforming their business, or they want to do a big growth or change or something. And it's just really hard to do that bit by bit in little chunks at a time, like put great photography on your bad website. It's like a nice step, but you're not going to be totally impressed by the results as if you had done everything that needed to be done and just launched the whole thing all glorious and perfect, as close to perfect as possible. I think my entire team is made of perfectionists, so things get a little intense. But yeah, we feel like if you want to see big change, you have to make some big changes. So we don't do anything halfway anymore. We don't cut corners. If we see that you're lacking anything, we're going to talk to you about it during proposal, not to try to make more money off of you, but we just don't want you to waste your time doing something if you're missing a really critical element. So yeah, transformation, I'm all about it.
That's awesome. I'd love to talk a little bit more about your own transformation going from solo to hiring a team. And it sounds like that kind of coincided with having kids. Was there a major mindset shift that you went through, or I guess how much trust was involved that you could let go of stuff?
Well, so at the start, I'd started hiring some illustrators because that was an area where I didn't have any particular skills. And I wanted to be able to make a really cool looking website. And I think I just had like an artist crush on a bunch of illustrators, and I wanted to figure out some way to work with them. So Aeolidia got known at the very start for making these really illustrative websites that looked super different from the kind of yucky websites you saw in the early 2000s. And so I was used to working with others, but I was the one doing all the main stuff. And then I hired a friend who had like kind of followed the same career trajectory as me, and we were both freelancing and we were doing the same kind of stuff. And I was like, why are we both struggling at this separately? We should just do it together. And so Sharon and I started working together, and that worked out very nicely. And, you know, she took care of her clients, I took care of my clients. It was no big hassle. And then the point where I really started to feel like it was changing is somebody else that I knew online asked if she could join us. And she wasn't, you know, friends or family. So I was like, wait, this feels real all of a sudden. Like hiring a friend sometimes doesn't seem like a big deal because you're like, I'm used to work. You know, I'm used to hanging out with them all the time. We can work stuff through. But hiring a near stranger feels like, oh, wow, this is really turning into a business now. So I was a little hesitant about that, but we went forward and it was great. And all three of us were doing great work. And I brought my husband in. It was all wonderful. And then when I was trying to figure out how we were going to keep things going while I was taking care of a baby, I was like, well, it's like, I guess I don't have to be doing everything. I guess I could just kind of sit back. And so since I was kind of forced to sit back and not do as much, I saw that things kept going when I was not designing websites. And I was like, I feel like I was kind of just eased gently into this because I wasn't able to, you know, be control freaking it out. I was too busy diapering people to be a control freak about how the business was going. And it worked out really nicely. So it was kind of shown to me that things worked when I was not always there. And then when I got back from that time and I was all re-energized, I'd already stepped back anyway. And I was like, this is working. This is fun. Let's just do it. And then we ended up hiring more designers and more developers. And it's really funny. Like, this is one of these like good problems that you're not supposed to complain about. But for the first, 6 or 8 years of business, we spent more time turning people away than accepting projects. So I was like, well, if I hire people, I can quit saying no to people because I really hate saying no to people. So just like bringing on more designers meant I could say yes more often. And that was a lot more fun. And it all just kind of worked out. Although I did have to learn a lot about how to run a business.
Were there ever any points in those sort of evolutions when you sort of evolved to a place that you're like, actually, I think this was kind of the wrong path to go down, and you kind of like had to backtrack or change course and be like, where you're like, oh man, it makes so much sense that the next step is X, Y, or Z, and then you're actually like,
Yeah, now that you mention it, like the times when I feel like we went down the wrong path, like there've definitely been like little mistakes where we had to make changes and stuff. But when it felt like just the whole wrong path and we had to like right the ship, most of those times were when I could see that we were growing and things were changing, but I didn't want to leave our audience behind. So we started out with really small handmade businesses and people who were just beginning like on Etsy and that kind of thing. And then we just kept learning more and more and getting better and better at what we did and spending much more time on websites, because the thing is, if you're not going to cut any corners and you're not going to leave things undone, you have to spend a long time doing things. So we couldn't keep charging what we used to charge, but I also didn't want to, water the service down. So I would just reach these times when I was like, oh, most of the people who want to work with us can't work with us anymore. And I thought that was a super big bummer. And at least twice, I tried to think of some way to bring them along for the ride while we were growing. Like, I didn't want to stop our growth, but I didn't want to shut people out either. So the times that I've done this, one time that stands out as particularly bad is we decided to offer simple Shopify setups. So instead of doing the whole big Aeolidia thing to your business, we were just going to help you quickly get set up on Shopify, make sure everything, like your logo's in there and it looks decent, hold your hand through some stuff and send you some links to articles to get started. And I thought this would just be like a wonderful service we could provide. And it was so terrible for everybody. It was such a bad idea because for many reasons, but one reason is people have really high expectations when they hire us. And then if I do a project where I'm cutting corners and hardly doing anything for you, you're like, what is this? What's even going on here? And then the other thing we noticed is that we're really good at helping people who have like a ton of momentum in their business, and the business is growing and they're getting busier all the time and they need to know what's next. And that's where we really can help them. But when we work with people who are just starting out and they're maybe not sure how to get traffic to their site and they don't have all their content prepared, like those projects would just go on for a really long time, just months and months of the shop owner not even having photography ready or something like that. And then once everything got done, there was no big satisfying like, yes, here we go. And now the sales pour in, because they just didn't know what the next step was. So it was just a lot of people feeling disappointed, and it's just hard to keep things on track. And we realized it was watering down what Aeolidia stood for and what people thought about Aeolidia. So it hurt my heart to be like, sorry, folks, I have no offerings for you. But we just had to hold firm and be like, this is what we do, and this is who we do it for, and who it can help. And I found ways to serve the people in the earlier stages in business with the blog and newsletter, like you mentioned, which are really fun and I enjoy writing. And doing stuff like this. And we've also started kind of a little branch of Aeolidia called the Ship Shape Collective, where it's our Facebook community, and we are trying to put together some more in-depth trainings and tutorials and kinds of things for people to do. So one day they can grow up and have that business that's like really succeeding and getting too busy and they're frazzled and they don't know what to do and they ding dong my doorbell.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, the idea of like what people expect from you as a brand. And even if you've kind of said, well, I'm only going to give you this, they're like, but I'm working with you, so I expect this.
It's like a magic bullet. It's like, well, now that the magic bullet is in my gun, we're going to be perfect here. But then, we haven't really provided anything that great, it turns out.
Yeah, I put the link in the profile in the chat area if you guys want to subscribe to her very helpful newsletter as well too.
It's one of the few that I actually read
every Wednesday.
So I'd love to know a little bit more about, so you talked about knowing, like kind of realizing that there is a certain expertise that you have, or a certain level of maker that you're ready to, or creative business owner that you're ready to work with. How, what are some of the ways that you know how to tell people that they aren't ready?
Well, that's a good question. So if you are ready to get a fully custom website and transform your business, like there's a lot of ways to transform your business, but the particular thing we do is it makes a lot more sense for businesses that are already seeing some success. Like you don't want to feel like you're not sure if there's a market for your product, or you don't want to feel like you don't know who your target market is. Like usually for our work to be the most successful, it's when we're working with a shop owner who totally understands who her target client is or her target customer. She knows people want her stuff. Marketing doesn't feel like a big struggle anymore maybe, or there's a branch of the business that's doing well. So we work with a lot of businesses that are very successful with wholesale, for instance, but maybe their website is not working that great. Or we work with businesses that have a great local brick and mortar shop, but they want to get some online sales. Or even people who are on Etsy and they're getting a ton of business on Etsy, but they want to make sure they're in control of their own site and they don't have to depend on Etsy's algorithm to take care of them. So we help a lot of people who are doing well there transition to having their own site. And I don't want to sound like we don't work with brand new businesses, because we do. We work with brand new businesses all the time. But we find that the most promising projects are when the client has maybe had a business before or some other experience where, they just feel like they've got their feet on the ground and they know what they're doing and they've got plans and goals. They're not just like throwing noodles to the wall and trying to see what sticks. So if you have a pretty good idea of how your business works and you know where you want to take it next, that's when we can really help you out.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because I think people can sometimes look at design or branding or, you know, certain things in their business as like, if they're stuck and there's things that are more like fundamentally wrong with their business, it's like, well, if I just make it look better or different, and that's not always going to like fix the fact that like your prices don't make sense and your product needs to get polished and whatever it is, it's actually much more like fundamentally wrong. And the design in a pretty website isn't going to cover that up.
Right. Yeah. Having a good foundation is really important. And I don't feel like we're good at fixing a broken business at all. We're really good at helping a succeeding business.
So once you do work with businesses, so usually you're doing either a rebrand process or a major launch of a website or helping them get through to a new market or something. What have you observed? I'm assuming you kind of watch these clients of yours as they go on. What are some of the other ways that businesses evolve after that process?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So yes, we totally pay attention to what our clients are doing afterwards. It's so fun to see how things are working. And one thing we do for all of our website clients is we come back for a 6-month checkup where we evaluate what's been working so well, what hasn't been working so well. One thing our clients tell us, especially when we do a rebrand and we make them a new logo, or we maybe even rename their business or work on their packaging or something like that, is like stores that they felt intimidated to contact before, or maybe had even tried to work with a store, but they got turned down. Now, like when everything looks just right about their business, they feel like they can get in touch and they can, you know, feel confident about contacting people, and everybody gets it. Like sometimes when you've got a really great business idea, but it's not looking quite right, you get it, but you can't really show anybody else they don't get it. But if your packaging is perfectly on point and people can tell who your target customer is, then it makes sense to them without you having to explain anything. They just glance and they're like, oh yeah, I totally need that for my shop. So we do find that people, like once they have the tool in place, they're able to do a lot of the marketing stuff they've been dreaming about, but didn't feel quite ready for. And the same thing with the website. Like sometimes if your website just isn't up to snuff, or if you want wholesalers to order off of it, but you don't have the capability, like once you have stuff all in place, you're able to really do like the PR campaigns that you want to do, or get in touch with press, or, you know, get featured on blogs and stuff like that. So it's really good to have everything all polished and spiffy.
Yeah. So it sounds almost in some ways like you like to work with businesses that have a good foundation already, but what you help them build is kind of a second layer of a foundation that enables them to then go after the next big thing.
Yeah. So I've heard this phrase that's it's like, what got you here won't get you there. It's like you're going to have to do something else to do the next thing in your business. So sometimes shop owners will come to us and they've been doing something that works so well for so long, and then they kind of feel like they've plateaued, or things are even going down a bit, and they realize that they're still doing things the old way, but their business has gotten bigger and it's time to do things differently. So yeah, I think there is a time when you kind of need to reevaluate how you've done things and take a look at your business and see how it's changed. And then sometimes you really do need to just step it up, and it's next level time.
Definitely.
I put 2 links in the chat too. One on the 3 ways to increase your Shopify conversion, and then also growing your creative business. So if people feel like, am I sort of in the right place? Can I do more? What's going on with all of that? Those 2 links can sort of like start jogging your brain on some stuff too.
Yeah. So we are getting close to time. So if any of you have questions for Arianne, please pop them in the Ask a Question section so we can make sure to cover those. And it could be questions about anything, really. Anything. So I think my last question for you is kind of, we touched on this a little bit already, but the difference between being a maker and being a boss, or being a business owner, and that transition, it kind of goes along with the mindset transition that you went through with your own business. But I'd love to know what you make of the example of like somebody like Emily McDowell, who became a boss in her business, but also definitely decided not to run her business. She still wanted to be really, really involved with all the design work, which is a little bit different approach to what you took, where you stepped away from the actual development. Can you talk a little bit about that and the different ways that people might look at running their business or being the boss of their business without the business consuming them?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I feel like I'm pretty different from Emily because Emily's business is all about Emily. If somebody else came in and started designing her cards, you'd just be like, it wouldn't be the same because she has her own unique voice and talents, and nobody else is Emily McDowell. So for her, I think she definitely should keep doing the design and coming up with the silly little card sayings that make everybody crack up. I shouldn't call them silly and little. They're awesome and powerful. Oh my gosh. But for me, I feel like I was pretty good at most of what I did back then, but nobody else was doing it back then. So it was easy, like the bar was kind of low. So I'm not going to insult myself. I was able to design. It was all fine, but I was replaceable, definitely. And the stuff I was interested in was just like having ideas and like making communities and setting up teams and stuff like that. And that all just kind of worked with my personality. I see a lot of makers, they just feel like, they want to make jewelry. They don't want to know how to do taxes or figure out bookkeeping things, or there's like legal paperwork you have to do. And I don't know, there's so many parts of a business that are maybe not synced to people's creative brains, right? Like we see a lot of people where there's just so many things you have to do. Like maybe you want to make jewelry and you don't ever want to be on social media, or writing a newsletter is just so foreign to you because you're not a writer. There's so many things you need to do in your business that you kind of have to decide at some point. Like it's good to look forward and think, do I want this just to be me forever? And if so, I'm going to have to set very different expectations for how much social media marketing I can do and things like that, because you should just sort of know what your strengths and weaknesses are there and just decide you're going to work with it and find a way to make it work. But most businesses I see that start taking it to like that next level place, I would say probably all of them, they end up hiring people. And it doesn't mean you have to directly hire an employee, but maybe you want somebody to do your taxes at tax time. You don't have to do every single thing that goes into running a business. It's usually pretty easy to hire somebody to set up a spreadsheet for you or whatever it is you need to do. So I think the people that are more open to hiring for the little things or just getting a way to have a third party come in and help them, people that are open to kind of welcoming some teamwork, I just feel like there's so much that needs to be done. I just get exhausted when I think of one person doing it all forever.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I think it's such a good way to think about it too, is like, what am I replaceable at? And obviously that's going to like change for every person, but like, probably like you're definitely replaceable at like putting cards in envelopes, or you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and you're definitely replaceable in lots of things that, those aren't the things that you either want to do or are the best at.
Yeah.
Did you want to go through the questions, Isaac? Okay, so we'll start with Steph. She says, to reach my business goals for this year, I just employed my first assistant. I'm quietly freaking out about the responsibility of this, finding the money to pay someone year long. Any tips on mindset shift for this?
Totally. So we think about this a lot because I feel like my business goes through growing pains multiple times a year. Even we'll just hit a point where we need to hire somebody, but we don't have the money to hire anybody, but we can't get anything done without somebody. And it's so frustrating. But like, I like to think like I have this little roller coaster in my mind. So like you're going along, business is getting better and better and better and better. And then you really need to hire somebody. And then now you're paying them. So maybe business has gone down a little bit, but that's just, you're on the way up again. So I feel like each time you go down a bit and then up. So when I hire somebody, and especially if money is tight, I want to hire in a role that's going to help us make more money. And that's either somebody directly helping with sales and marketing kinds of things, or is hiring somebody who's really going to free up a lot of my time. And then I'm going to purposefully use that time to do what I need to do to help the business make more money. So yeah, I think just looking at what that person is bringing to the business, either directly or by allowing you to actually do what you need to do, can really calm down those fears. Because for me, every time we hire somebody, even if it's tough at first, it's because we're on the way up and things are going to get better than they were before we hired them. It just takes a little while.
Yeah, I think that there's always usually a little bump with whoever it is that you're hiring that's new, to get adjusted to your process and you feeling like you can release control and they're doing it adequate to your standards. And you're going to feel like, oh man, is this going to be a little bit of a time where you're like, oh man, was this the bad idea? Because things don't feel better than they were before. But then they usually go back up and you're like, okay.
Yeah, and it's time too, just like you said, Sharon. It's not just money that you have to worry about, because it actually takes a lot more of your time to train somebody than to just do it your own darn self. But after 3 years of doing it your own darn self, if you can imagine going back and having hired somebody 3 years ago, think about where you'd be now. Sometimes you just have to power through it.
Totally. The next question is Trisha is asking, it seems that for the past 2 years, I've been stuck in a place of busyness on the cusp of too much for one to handle, but not enough finances to appropriately pay an employee or two. I spent last year investing in my business, Brickhouse Branding, obtained a trademark, redesigned my website, and I'm finishing up new packaging. I've also raised my prices this year, but I feel like I'm stuck as to what else I can do to overcome this hump. Do you have any suggestions?
That all sounds awesome. So my first suggestion is pat yourself on the back for all the amazing stuff you did this last year. And then the next part is, a lot of people think, oh, I need to hire 2 employees, and they're thinking of like 80 hours a week. But it's not like a black and white thing where you either have no employees or 2 employees. You could hire somebody for 2 hours a week, and that might give you enough time, like just the stuff that you're really slow at or you don't enjoy, or that would be really helpful in getting you more sales or something like that. So you can start really small and then, add more hours as you need to. There's lots of different ways to hire people now. You can hire freelancers from a site like Upwork, or you can hire Shopify experts. You can hire a virtual assistant, and that can all be a lot easier too, because you don't have to go through a lot of the paperwork and legalities of hiring a real employee. So I would say just start small and take little steps to dig yourself out of feeling too busy all the time.
Yeah.
I also think going back to like what you talked about earlier about like what you're replaceable on. And sometimes we'll be like, I really just want to get this one thing off my plate, but that's not the thing that actually is the easiest to get off your plate. It's more just a thing that you find annoying, or I don't know, whatever it is in your business. And actually there's somebody better to do something that you kind of don't mind, but you probably just should not be doing too. So like, I don't know what you're planning on hiring for, but like, think about if there's other things that you can hire for that actually might be cheaper, or, that it doesn't necessarily have or, on a more part-time basis, than doing the full board, what you thought you could need to hire somebody for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll find that the things that take up the most of your time, maybe it's something you could just totally not do at all. So if you spend a ton of time on social media and then you look at your Google Analytics and you're hardly getting any sales from social media, you could just stop doing it. I feel like sometimes people feel like there's all this stuff that they have to do. But if I say for each business, take a look at what it's actually bringing you. If there's no good return on the time or money investment you're making, you don't have to do it at all. Do something totally different.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a level of like setting aside your own ego about what you do in your business. And it sounds like, Arianne, you went through a similar thing when you realized, I don't actually have to be doing the development. Like that's not what makes this business this business. So taking a really critical look without letting your emotions get in the way as much with, the various things that you do in your business and what you can step back from or give to somebody else would be helpful. And then the other thing I was going to add for Trisha in particular is if it's more of a cash flow concern, like you've invested in your business and you've raised your prices, but you still don't have the cash flow to bring someone on, then I think you could do one of two things. You could either adjust your pricing again or start working, maybe you can save a tiny bit of money a month that isn't enough to pay someone, but you put that into kind of your future contractor fund so that when it does build up to a certain amount, you have a little bit of a pool of money to draw from to at least get that started. That was one idea I had.
That's smart. I like that. You know, for me, I think I just didn't like the idea of being the boss, because bosses just seemed like a guy in a suit and a tie who was like the fuddy-duddy, no fun person. So if you just hate the idea of boss, like as a knee-jerk reflex like I did, it's really inspiring to look at some of the amazing business owners like Emily McDowell and other cool people, Handcrafted Honeybee, who they're building a team that's like a family to them. It's like, that's an okay way to be a boss. Boss itself is not bad.
Totally. And there's different ways that you can be a boss. It doesn't have to be the way that this particular company or whatever that you have stuck in your mind is like, I need to pattern myself exactly after this business or something. That it's like, why do you think that that has to be how you get to run it? You can run it the way that you decide to run it.
Totally.
You know?
Like that reminds me of Christina from Bamboletta. Her company makes handmade dolls. And she's insisted the whole time, even when she's got a team of 40 women working for her, that she sews the faces on every single one. And she just won't give that job up. And lots of people have told her she should give that job up. But she's like, this is what brings me joy about my business. I'm not going to quit sewing the faces on. So, you know, it's fine to do things your way, even if it's not the way you feel like a business should be run.
Yeah. That reminds me of Tina of High Tree. The way that she does her process usually is like, she does things one and done. She doesn't usually do like a production process and then piece it together at the end. She just goes through and will crochet a thing. And she's like, but I don't want to break that down because this is the way I enjoy doing it best. So she'll look for other ways to speed things up, but that's like, she's like, it just happens so quickly for me that, you know, and in this process that I choose to not do it different ways of scaling. So, all right. Well, I think this is about up then. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today, Arianne. It was great to hear what you do and great to hear like your own transformation in your business. It's super fascinating. We have another week after this of the same topic, and we're going to talk about the revolution of taking yourself seriously in business. So join us for that next week, same time. And yeah, if you missed any of this, the replay will be automatically up right after this. And as well as if you go right above our heads where it says schedule, the replay for all of the other December and January YHB TVs are in there. So thank you so much for being with us, Arianne, and I hope you guys have the great rest of your day.